whatever we're interested in.
It's not Good evening.
Obligations I can't
Calling to order
extricate myself from, specifically
the
lodging.
Pittsboro Town Board of Commissioners
Last place I
for
was at,
Monday,
had a
June
month to month.
In
It's,
accordance with our custom,
notice was really
we'll pause for a moment to have a moment of silence.
Sure. Right, we'll just speak some.
Commissioner Farrell, would you use the pledge?
Starts with everyone rise for the pledge. Wasn't he in the room?
This is Matthews.
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. We have our agenda before us. Is there a motion to either approve the agenda as proposed or a motion to modify which is
I move approval.
Second.
Looks like, actually, this looks
motion
like
by Commissioner
Page
Farrell,
space,
seconded
Scott.
by Commissioner Baldwin. Those in favor, please indicate aye.
exit them all.
Saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Committee
We
code.
have two resolutions this evening. The first is the year of the trail 2023. This is a resolution designating 2023 as the year of the trail in Pittsboro Whereas Pittsboro's natural beauty is critical to its residents' quality of life, health, and economic well-being. And whereas the trails that span across our community are an integral part of the recreational and transportation possibilities of our area and promote an enjoyment of scenic beauty by our residents and visitors. And whereas the parks, greenways, trails, and natural areas of our community are welcome to all and provide a common ground for people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds to access our rich and diverse natural, cultural, and historic resources. Whereas Pittsboro's natural assets and resources are integral to disaster recovery and resiliency to climate change for future generations. And whereas Pittsboro's nature trails vary from the trail at the Town Lake Park, which goes along the lake and by the waterfalls, to the greenway system connecting nearby neighborhoods, to Knight Farm Community Park, to the half-mile asphalt trail at Rock Ridge Park, which is along a 6,939-foot-long golf disc course, to the recently completed Robertson Creek Greenway. And whereas trails offer quality of life benefits to all its expressions of local community character and pride, as outdoor workshops for science education, as tools for economic revitalization, as free resources for healthy recreation, as accessible alternative transportation, and as sites for social and cultural events. And whereas Pittsboro's Parks and Recreation Advisory Board is a strong advocate for trails in Pittsboro. Whereas Pittsboro's Town Board strongly supports the recommendations of the 2019 One Pittsboro Parks and Recreation Master Plan and the 2020 Pittsboro, North Carolina Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. And whereas the town of Pittsboro looks forward to future projects such as the Greenway along 15501 north of downtown, the completion of the Lower Fall River Trails Plan in Pittsboro, the facilities to be provided for the open space and public facilities elements of the Chatham Park Master Plan, and a comprehensive network of bike and pedestrian trails throughout the entire town. And whereas the North Carolina General Assembly designated 2023 as the year of the trail in North Carolina to promote and celebrate the state's extensive network of trails that showcase our state's beauty, vibrancy, and culture. And whereas North Carolina is known as the Great Trails State. Now therefore be it resolved that 2023 is the year of the trail in Pittsboro, and its observance is recommended to all people. Adopted this the 23rd day of January 2023. Is there a motion to accept this resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Shipp,
Seconded.
seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. And our second resolution tonight is a resolution recognizing Black History Month. Whereas Black History Month is the annual celebration and observance of a special period to recognize the achievements and contributions of Black African Americans. And whereas this observance was first conceived in 1926 by Carter G. Woodson and celebrated during the second week of February to coincide with the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. And whereas in 1976, President Gerald R. Ford officially recognized the celebration for the entire month of February, calling upon the public to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And whereas since 1976, every American president has designated the month of February as Black History Month. And whereas observance affords special opportunity to become more knowledgeable and to honor a history of multiple struggles, to rise out of poverty, strive for equal housing and education, to the issue of voting rights, those efforts live on even in the present. And whereas Black African Americans have made significant contributions in science, medicine, theology, education, music, sports, and public service, including the positions of both President and Vice President of the United States of America. And whereas the pursuit of knowledge about Black African history can strengthen our insights regarding the issues of human rights, the historical and ongoing strides to eliminate the barriers of equality for minority groups, and the continuing struggle against racial discrimination and poverty. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Pittsboro Board of Commissioners, that the month of February in the calendar year 2023 be celebrated as Black History Month, and urge all citizens of our community to give it full regard to the past and present of Black African Americans generally, and to the 2023 theme of In Our Town, Our State, and Our Nation, adopted this the 23rd day of January 2023. And is there a motion to accept this resolution?
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin,
Seconded.
seconded by Commissioner James Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next matter is citizens matters, and the manager will now give us an update. And we recognize Hazen Logic for that update.
So, Mayor, members of the board, this will be my last meeting. I just want to thank you all for allowing me to serve this community. It's a great town, and the future is great for the town of Pittsboro. I'd also like to thank the town employees. You guys have some dedicated staff, public servants that want to do the very best for you and the community. So we're lucky to have. Most of my time here has been focused on water and sewer. The issues are complex and expensive, and you guys understand it. Just I talked to Senator Murdoch a few minutes ago, but we are all working very hard to seek funding and move these projects forward, including the force main, which we have bids on, the water plant expansion down in Sanford, which is a pending. Some decisions are pending, and so I'm looking forward to introducing Larry Basin. He's the proposed interim town manager to take my spot. Larry's got a plethora of experience in local government, and we work closely together when we were in the Charlotte Monroe area. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we welcome you, Larry Faison. We'll look forward to your expertise and onboarding with Hazen. He's learned well all the special places here in Pittsboro, and you'll have to ask him what his favorite recommendations for restaurants. Thank you. Under Mayor and Commissioner updates and concerns, this evening I would like to present to the town of Pittsboro a Founders Day campaign champion recognition to the town of Pittsboro by the Boys and Girls Club this past week. Kyle Shipp being one of the founding members of the Boys and Girls Club here, celebrated the town and major donors to the Boys and Girls Club. And we have this lovely piece to recognize that contribution. And so, Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin, do you have concerns or meetings you'd like to report?
Well, thank you very much, Mayor. I did actually attend the MLK breakfast on Saturday morning, 8:00 a.m. So, and our guest speaker was Representative Reeves, and it was quite a good event. I wish you all could have come. So it was very exciting, and we certainly invite you next year to attend the MLK breakfast. And it is sponsored by the it's sponsored by the West Chatham NAACP. So again, you all are invited to that. In terms of the Triangle J Council of Governments, that meeting will actually be on Wednesday. So, and it is an open meeting, even though we do it via Zoom, so anyone can get on there. In reference to the affordable housing, I think that next meeting will be in March, if I'm not mistaken. Commissioner Shipp will certainly
February.
correct me.
February
will
first,
be-
Thursday in February.
Okay, so we have that. And so I'm going to stop at that particular point. There are a couple other meetings, but I will not talk about those until another time.
Thank you. Commissioner Bonitz,
I have nothing to report.
Commissioner Farrell,
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner Shipp,
Yes, I was gonna say nothing at this time, but that's not true. I have a lot of meetings about the regionalization, utility projects, all those things, trying to keep those projects moving and to have funding for those projects. So continuing to keep you all updated about that. Appreciate Katie working with me on the year of the trail. The theme for February is to make a date with a trail. So encourage everyone to go make a date with the trail. Thursday and Friday, January 12 and 13, I had the opportunity to attend a course at UNC School of Government with the local elected leaders academy, and just really great resources. We have 20 minutes up the road here to learn about being elected leaders. We had the EDC meeting January 18th. That was also the same day as the Wolfspeed Supplier Day. So that was a pretty good event put on by Wolfspeed to attract local businesses to be suppliers for the Wolfspeed project. I think they will have more, and there will also be some coming up for VinFast. It is important to keep in mind we still have 2,000 acres, over 2,000 acres available in Chatham County for large scale economic development projects. So still working on those. And Chatham County had a record year in 2022 for commercial development before anything has happened with VinFast or Wolfspeed. So it is definitely coming and we need to prepare for it. As we talked in the meeting before about CCCC and all of the help that they give this region for that. Our next meeting is the 15th of February. And then just in terms of concerns, we'll see it a little bit in the presentation tonight, but the projections are that we will be out of water capacity, potentially this summer with the higher usage. So we just want to work on some water conservation policies for that, particularly with the GAC system that we put in can't process the full capacity of our plant without additional investment. So we have really good water now, and we need to be judicious about using it. So.
thank you. Commissioner Vose,
Arts Council met on Tuesday, the 17th. I don't have anything directly related to Pittsboro to report there, but we are forming a committee to more actively raise funds, and I'll be a part of that. Chamber of Commerce met on Thursday, the 19th. I was with you, Mayor Perry, and was not able to make it to that one, but the executive committee meets on February 7th. I will be there. And Tarpo has not met since we last met. That's what I've got.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now is the time for public comment. I believe that Jason Hoyle has signed up to speak before the board this evening. Jason, if you would come to the podium there, and we'd be glad to hear you for 3 minutes.
So this has to do with the Turkey Creek assemblage. And from the last, that's all it was in reference to. So I don't know if that needs to be at a different time. I had spoke at the last meeting. Is this the time to go ahead for it?
Does the board wish to hear Mr. Hoyle, despite the fact that matter is on the agenda? Yes.
All right. So I'm the Vice President of Operations for our businesses down on Moncure Pittsboro Road. We're at 840 Moncure Pittsboro Road. So we fall directly across the street. And if looking at the map and the diagram that was provided, the entrance looks like it would be directly across from International Woodyard Road. So this isn't we have no disagreement. We have no problems with anything that are going to go on over there. We actually did a lot of the timber management for the Walters when they owned all that property for many, many years. We just are kind of wanting to make sure that everybody's aware, any stakeholders that are involved in the project, the type of business that we run across the street. So down International Woodyard Road is the main access point for all of the trucks that enter and exit from our property. And we do everything from timber to, open top chip vans and stuff. So we have currently, we average about 100 loads a week out. And so we get that or more coming in. So we're around 25, 30 loads a day of tractor trucks and things that are going to come from all the various mills and from all of the wood products industries in the area are going to come in and out of our facility there. So we're just kind of wanting to make sure that everybody understands and realizes, the traffic issues that may be there with residential and or businesses across the street and just entering and exiting from right across from International Woodyard Road. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Ron.
Sure. Thank you.
Next matter on the agenda is the consent agenda. We can have action on the consent agenda as it stands, or a motion made to modify the consent agenda. What is the pleasure of the board?
Mayor, I just have one thing on the consent, on the minutes for January 9th.
Yes, sir.
It's January 9th on the consent number 5. I think it had Mr. Shipp, but it was I pulled the consent agenda number 5. It had Kyle Shipp as the
That was based on how we did it, basically. So I pulled it when we approved the agenda. And then really we pulled it again when we approved the consent agenda. So it's both on there in the consent agenda section.
okay. Hey,
It says,
We'll
yep,
modify the agenda so that it recognizes that both of you were involved.
it's correct. It says that.
Oh, very good. And so is there a motion? For the consent agenda?
Sorry, just one question I had to, I realized later, I sent those small edits to the resolution for the downtown advisory board. Is that the version that we're approving?
Is the text?
Did I
of
send
the
those?
Resolution to the downtown advisory board the same as he made the edits to, or have the edits been?
Did I actually send that out?
I didn't see it.
Okay, well, anyway, we'll approve as is and modify if we need to.
Oh. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right, that's the end of the consent agenda. There are no public hearings tonight. And under miscellaneous, the first we have is Heather Meacham, our finance director, will be introducing Jacob Sharpe, our CPA and audit review group via Zoom. So is that Zoom ready? Yeah.
Hi, this is Heather Meacham. So board Jay is on remotely and he will be sharing his screen and presenting the audit presentation for you. And I'm not sure if he's updated his presentation, but in the packet that you received, it said that our audit had not been approved, but it was approved on Friday by the LGC. So, and if you have any questions afterwards, either Jay or myself can answer.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Sharpe.
Right. Good evening. Thanks for having me on tonight. I'm sorry I cannot be there in person. Unfortunately, my 4-year-old son got me sick over the weekend, so still recovering from that. But I am here to present the 2022 audit for the town. And so I've shared my screen and I'll go through the proceedings and I'll be glad to take any questions you have on any of the information I'm presenting tonight. So, all right, to get started, the status of the audit, field work has been completed. The financial statements have been prepared. And as Heather just mentioned, the audit was approved by the Local Government Commission late last week. And so for our instances, the audit is complete for the year ended June 30th, 2022. Some roles and objectives. These haven't changed since last year, but I do want to reiterate some of the information we do, some of the procedures we do in conducting the town's annual audit. We don't just crunch numbers. There's some other things we look at during the audit process. And most of those are in regards to internal controls. We get an update of our understanding of internal controls in place with the town. And we do test those controls on an annual basis. They may vary on year to year, depending on what we're seeing and what we want to test during the planning process. But for 2022, we tested controls over cash disbursements, over payroll, and over credit control. And so from our understanding of internal controls and from the results of our test of controls, we perform a risk assessment or a risk-based audit approach. It's the same audit approach we've used in the past. Basically, we're assessing risk to every significant financial reporting area the town has. We're going to concentrate our audit procedures on the higher risk areas, but we are going to look at every significant financial reporting area of the town. For example, cash, receivables, revenues, expenses. And we do this to obtain what we call sufficient evidence to render an opinion on the financial statements. That is why you hire us, is to give an opinion on the financial statements. And that opinion concentrates on whether the financial statements are free from material misstatement. So the results for the 2022 audit. Unfortunately, the scope and the timing of the audit were not on track this year. There were some issues with the town's accounting system that kind of delayed some of the audit proceedings for 2022. But I'm confident moving forward, those have been corrected and all future audits should be on time. The audit opinion I was just talking about. So once again, the town received an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That is the best possible opinion you can receive. It's a clean opinion on your financial statements. So good news there for the town. And once again, there were no findings this year. No material weaknesses or significant deficiencies noted. Like I said, during our course of audit, if we notice there's issues, especially with internal controls, or with certain compliance matters that we test during the audit proceedings. If there are issues, we're required to report those to you. But I'm happy to report there were no material weaknesses or no significant deficiencies noted during the audit procedures. And finally, I always like to talk about audit adjustments. Obviously, as a board, you're receiving financial information periodically to make key decisions for the town. And so if I came in here and said we had a significant amount of audit adjustments, you may be concerned, but there were none. There were just several routine audit adjustments and several provided by the town during our audit procedures, but nothing unusual and nothing significant for 2022. So to kind of summarize, a clean audit opinion and no findings this year for the town. In addition to the audit, we always are required to issue a separate letter. I've always called this a communications letter because it's communicating 4 major talking points to those charged in governance, which is the board. First of all, any major accounting policy changes. There was one new accounting standard that came out that affected all governments for 2022. We called it GASB 87, relates to leases. It did not have a significant impact on your financial statements, but I did want to bring that up, that there was new accounting policy that was for all governments that did affect, it was adopted by the town for 2022. One of the areas we pay close attention to during the audit process are estimates. There are some numbers that are hard and fast numbers, and there are some numbers that are created from estimates. The 2 major estimates the town has continues to be the depreciable lives of its capital assets and the allowance for doubtful accounts. We looked at those and those estimates appeared reasonable, no issues there. I'm happy to report no disagreements with management and no difficulties encountered during the audit process. We had complete cooperation from everybody at the town during the audit process. So finally, we're going to talk about the numbers. I think you'll see that the numbers indicate that the town has a healthy financial position and had a good year for 2022. So first of all, looking at the general fund, this is the trend analysis for the last 10 years. The red represents revenues, the blue represents expenses. The first thing you'll notice is your revenues have outpaced your expenses each the last 10 years. And you see the trend is showing the revenues have gone up. Now, the expenses have gone up also, but once again, you're showing what we call profit on your financial statements year in, year out for the last 10 years. For 2022, between $6.8 and $6.9 million in revenue for your general fund, while you only showed $5.6 million in expenses. So a very healthy year for the town for the general fund. And this will be reiterated with your fund balance. So your fund balance is the town's net worth at a given point in time. This graph goes all the way back to June 30th, 2013 and proceeds through June 30th, 2022. Back in 13, you were at $2.6 million in fund balance. At the end of June 30th, 2022, you're at $6.3 million in fund balance. So a significant jump in your fund balance over the last 10 years. And you've seen an increase in your fund balance each of the last several years since 2019. So once again, it shows that the town is very healthy financially. If we look at your fund balance in a little bit more detail, it's made up of three areas. Assigned fund balance, which is assigned by the town. Then you have restricted fund balance, which is restricted by external sources, general statute. Most of this is restricted by Stabilization Act by general statutes, and also your Powell funds, which are used for streets. And then finally, the biggest piece of this pie is your unassigned fund balance. That was $5.5 million at the end of 2022. Now, one of the things the LGC does is look at your unassigned fund balance and compares it to your prior year expenditures. They want to see this at 8% or higher. Now, if you do your calculation, you're almost at 100%, just below 100%. So your fund balance, your unassigned general fund balance is very healthy. We do audits for a good number of towns and cities throughout the area. We generally see that towns and cities are about 30 to 40%. And like I said, you're almost at 100%. So it shows that your town is very healthy financial wise and with the general fund. Another calculation showing the health of the town is your cash reserves. Looking at your cash balances, these are unrestricted cash balances, and comparing those to the expenditures, how long you continue operating if you receive no more cash. We generally recommend this to be 3 to 6 months. For 2022, you are at 415 days. So over a year in cash reserves. And I say it was over a year last year. It's been trending upwards since 2013, where it was 265 days. So you put cash aside for a rainy day. Once again, this indicates a very healthy financial position for the town. Property taxes, kind of looking at the trend analysis for your property tax revenues. Back in 2013, it was just below $1.6 million. For 2022, it was $3.2 million. So you've seen a steady increase in your revenues associated with property taxes over the last 10 years. This is mostly due to valuations and assessments, because as you see on the next chart, your property tax rates have not gone up since 2014. So your revenues are going up, but your rates are not going up in the same time frame. The expenditure breakdown for 2022, how the town spent its money. Public safety continues to be the number one priority of the town. 43% of your total expenditures went toward public safety. Your second largest line item was general government at 24%, and then followed by transportation at 12%. So once again, the largest three line items for expenditures, public safety, general government, and transportation. We compare this to 2021. It was public safety, general government, and then you had some other categories there, culture and recreational back in 2021. So a slight shift, but public safety and general government remain the top two expense line items for the town. Finally, we'll talk about the water and sewer fund. And just like the general fund, you'll see that there's a good financial, healthy fund here. Looking at operating revenues and expenses for the water and sewer fund over the last 10 years, you'll see you had a large increase in operating revenues. It jumped from $3.4 million to $5.8 million. This is due to increase in rates and usage in your water and sewer fund. Your expenses kind of held steady, slightly increased, Very healthy year for your water and sewer fund from the income statement. Doing the same cash reserve calculation we use for the general fund, once again shows your water and sewer fund are healthy. You have 664 days in cash reserves. That went up from 525 days back in 2021. But you've been consistent, a nice reserve in place over the last 10 years with your water and sewer fund. And the quick ratio, this is kind of a liquidity risk ratio. This is really highly liquid accounts, your assets and liabilities, basically cash receivables compared to your current liabilities. Anything over a 2-to-1, 3-to-1 ratio is considered healthy. For 2022, you're almost 9-to-1. So you have 9 times more liquid assets than you do current liabilities. And once again, shows your water and sewer fund is very healthy at the end of 2022. And finally, the fund balance breakdown for your water and sewer fund. The biggest piece of the pie here is capital assets. Obviously, the infrastructure the water and sewer fund uses, followed by restrictions. Majority of these are restricted for projects. And then finally, unrestricted amounts at $1.7 million. But once again, this shows a very healthy fund balance for your water and sewer fund. Kind of just to summarize everything, once again, a clean opinion on the financial statements, no findings, and both the general fund and the water and sewer fund had good years, and your financial position is very healthy at the end of June 30th, 2022. But with that, I'll be glad to take any questions you may have on the audit procedures, the results of the audit, or the numbers themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Sharpe. Questions by the board? Doesn't appear that we have any.
Yeah. No questions, Jay, but I just did want to thank you very much for the succinct presentation and as well the perspective that you continue to give us with the numbers over time. I greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you so much.
Right, thank you.
Proceed next to the Pittsboro Social District. Lisa Thompson will address us with respect to a discussion of the Pittsboro Social District.
Good evening. The downtown work plan that was approved includes a social district project. So a few members of the Economic Vitality Committee, they're helping with the research of social districts. We're going to present the findings to the Downtown Advisory Board for their recommendation and then bring that to the town board for final consideration. So for tonight, I can give an overview of social districts or answer any questions you have, or just receive any feedback that you would like staff to take into consideration moving forward.
I'd like to hear a general overview of that because I'm actually not that much in favor of social district at this time.
Okay, so it was statute 18B-904.1 was approved by the General Assembly in September of 2021 that allowed social districts to be created in municipalities if approved by the Board of Commissioners. The definition of a social district is a specific defined area where you can purchase alcohol from a business that has a permit that allows that. But then you can take the alcohol, whether it's beer, wine, or liquor, and you can go anywhere in that district, whether indoors or outdoors. A business can opt out of allowing someone to bring in alcohol. There has to be a sign on the door that states that. So anywhere else, someone can walk into another business or walk around outside so long as it's within that defined area. Social districts have to require certain standards like hours of operation. The drink container has to identify where the drink was purchased. So it has to have like a label, a sticker on it. There can be no more than 16 ounces in the drink. And the entire area has to have signage on the different sidewalks specifying the boundary areas of the social district. Any door that exits to an area that is not in the social district has to have signage saying that as well. There's also enforcement of social districts. So if there's a violation of the rules, there can be, if, convicted of a misdemeanor, and also have a penalty fee included as a fine for the violation. That kind of give you an idea of.
Yes, thank you for that overview. I just want
Yes, ma'am.
everyone to hear it at the same time. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we know how they've worked out in other municipalities of our size? Just in general?
Yeah, I would say in general that social districts do help increase the economic activity in a downtown area. And it does increase the vibrancy of a downtown. We haven't heard, or I haven't heard much of issues with like rowdy behavior or not following the rules. The most, I guess, con of social districts at this point is the burden it puts on staff for the administrative parts of it, where, we have to make sure all the signage is put up, that people are labeling the drinks correctly. We have to monitor that and then possibly enforce any issues that aren't being followed. So just the administrative side has been more of a burden on jurisdictions than I think originally thought it would be.
Was this enabling statute passed for the whole state, or was it passed for certain identified counties?
The entire state, but each individual jurisdiction has to approve it by the Board of Commissioners. So if you don't want to have a social district, you don't have to.
And I think it was passed originally and then modified about a year later after a couple towns and cities had done it and made it a little less restrictive. So I've read about some other, there's actually a lot of communities that done it now. And I think it's not, we shouldn't think of it as a boardwalk or a city in Nevada or things like that. But particularly in the compact downtowns, some of the feedback I've heard is that it makes it easier. For example, if you have, two restaurants next to each other, then to, go between those restaurants and things like that. You still can't take from one restaurant into another. And we can do anything we want also in terms of saying parking lots are not included. Specific areas are not included in town. Sitting hours, most of the hours stop, I think about 11 p.m., so it's not late into the evening. But with the ABC laws in the state and the zoning and things like that, it makes it a little easier for businesses to operate downtown without coming to us for special permission each time for those things.
Selco effectively has one, right, with their built-in boardwalk. So my thought was, as they get busier, it'll increase traffic and customers moving north. That's why I wanted to talk about it sooner rather than later.
There was some discussion about SoCo having a vehicle that, like a bus, that would go from, for example, their district to the plant district. Because that's quite a distance. I think that's what, 2 miles. And that way there would be a little protection for drivers and the people that are imbibing. But that's not going to be written into part of the social district.
No, I think that's a separate thing. And it's not, the social district doesn't allow it in vehicles at all. Either, but the shuttle, no. But the shuttle is a separate issue on that. But, I mean,
Do you have Like downtown Pittsburgh, you have a stopping point that's starting at the stopping point, like from Bank Street or Salisbury.
No, sir, not yet. We're looking at what that recommendation would be.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any more questions for Teresa Thompson?
I don't have anything else.
Well, we will be coming back to the board with a recommendation from the Downtown Advisory Board and proposed language for you to consider as well.
Great.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, Teresa.
Under old business, land use plan update, Jenny Phelps will lead us in that discussion. And this is for information.
Good evening, everyone. So since we're getting closer to actually bringing the plan to you, we wanted to give you another update as we've been receiving more comments. We're tying up the steering committee meetings. So in the memo, I just briefly covered what I wanted to talk about. So the tentative board discussion and hearing dates, the reason why, so we're extending it again, but not by a lot. The main reason is because we were awarded the Partners for Green Growth grant. And so that's going to help really improve our conservation element to the land use plan. So originally we were just going to do kind of a basic update, but this will give us another section to really have some strong, not regulation, but recommendations and everything for. So it took a while to get that contract signed. I think there was about a month delay. So we're pushing it back another month. Tentatively, the plan will go to the planning board for their March meeting, which is on March 6th, and then it will come to you all. I'm thinking for probably the first meeting in April that you all have. And then if you need to discuss it further, then you can extend it to the following one. But that's our plan so far. And then we do have a page on the website for the land use plan update that you can direct people to. I know we have received some comments and there are some updates that we need to do because the draft map has been changed a few times. So we will get those updated, but there are some routes to look and see what we have been doing so far. And people can provide comments as well. And then we should just have one more steering committee meeting. We showed them about half of the plan at the last one that we had. So now our consultant is tying up the other half of it. And that one will be just virtual. So we're going to kind of go over and make sure everything's good to go before actually showing the draft plan to everyone. So that's all I have for that. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Questions for Jane?
No questions, but it'd be great. You may have already, but it'd be great to have those things on our calendar as representatives of the public, so we can also spread the word about those events.
The steering committee meeting?
No, I think you said it would be a virtual event.
With the steering committee.
Oh, just the steering committee. Okay, forgive me.
Yep.
So appreciate the updates on this. And as I said before, I want to make sure that we do this correctly the first time, but that we also aren't going to get it perfect the first time. So just, that we remember that this is to be updated at a regular cadence going forward. And it's been a long time, so it's a big update, but I want to keep pushing forward because we are looking to this to guide a lot of development that's on hold for a few reasons now, but that we have this ready when we have development available also.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, and you make a good point. It is a living document, just like our UDO. So even though it's been adopted, it's going to get these get adopted. We can amend them as long as, it makes sense. So once whatever you adopt, it's not set in stone forever. If you feel there's a need to change, or if staff feels there's a need to change, then that's just fine to discuss and potentially do.
But definitely appreciate the effort and the scale of the effort also for this update.
Yep. Thank you.
Anything further, Jane? Thank you so much. The next item under old business is the Chatham Park Commerce Center annexation. Molly Boyle will be working with us on that, and we will need to vote on this request.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm Molly Boyle with the Planning Department. Tonight's item is the last step in the annexation process for the Chatham Park Commerce Center. This is in section 5.3 of Chatham Park. In your packet, you'll see the memorandum that lists all the steps in the annexation process taken to date. And you may recall we held the public hearing on this item a while ago. It was on May 9th, 2022. And no members of the public offered any comment at that public hearing. And we also agreed at the applicant's request to delay the vote on the item. The applicant wanted to wait until they got closer to receiving approval on their construction drawings. And they're close to that now, so they're ready to move forward with the vote. And the only other thing of note with this case is that the area proposed for annexation is actually decreased slightly. Originally, the applicant was proposing to annex the area for the Commerce Center plus some additional area to the west. I believe they're still working on the entitlements, so they updated their request to remove that area to the west, and they're just annexing in the portion that they need for the Chatham Park Commerce Center. And with that, if you have any questions, I can take those now. And also Mr. Pudwill, the applicant, is on the call as well.
Thank you, Molly. Are there any questions for either Molly or the applicant? This is all on the west side of Eubanks Road, is that correct? If there are no questions, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the annexation.
Motion by Commissioner Shipp,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
very much.
Next is the system development fee update report. And Kent Jackson, will you be introducing that for us?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and members of the board. So in 2022, we engaged Freeze and Nichols to update our system development fees. As you're aware, and you've heard an overview of this in December as part of the phase one of the merger study. So tonight we have Brian Jan with Freeze and Nichols and also Chris Belt with Freeze and Nichols to give you a little bit more in-depth overview of the system development fee report and analysis, and of course, answer any questions. Brian.
All right. So good evening. I believe that you all have been presented with a copy of the draft report. I've summarized that in a few slides and several talking points. So I'm going to go through those at a very high level, but I will answer any questions that you have at the end. So really first, some facts and figures. So what is a system development fee? It's essentially a fee charged to new development to pay for the infrastructure to serve the new development. So that's what a system development fee is. Chapter 162A, Article 8 of the North Carolina General Statutes. That is what dictates how we do a system development fee calculation, what it can be used for. It gives you the authority to charge it. There's everything that you need to know is in that statute. So what we did complies with that statute. When we do the calculation, what you see tonight is the maximum fee. You can charge up to that fee. You don't have to. You can charge anything less than that fee. But what we did is a calculation to tell you what the maximum allowable fee is under the statute. Lets you look at a 10 to 20 year planning horizon. In this case, we used a 20-year planning horizon for our analysis. 3 allowable methods are outlined in the statute. We'll get into a whole lot of detail about those, but we use the incremental method, which essentially looks at capital improvements needed for future development. There's also a buy-in method, which calculates a cost to buy into your system. There's not a lot of capacity there, so we didn't utilize that method. And then there's a combine that combines those two together. So we did the incremental method. The statute dictates that you have to update this SDF report and analysis every 5 years at least. You can do it more frequently than that, but it has to be done every 5 years. One thing to note is when we do the incremental method, there is a credit that we have to apply. And it is a 25% minimum credit. We did a credit analysis and it defaulted to the 25%. It's complicated. We can get into that if you'd like to, but just know that there is a credit on top of this. And the numbers that we look at tonight include that credit coming back. When we look at capital improvements over the course of this 20-year planning horizon, only the utilized capacity amount can be used. So if we don't use the entire capacity of an asset in 20 years, we don't include the cost of that asset to 100%. It's a proportionate amount that we use. Once you go through this analysis, and I'll show it on the next slide in detail, it's a simple calculation of a cost per gallon that we calculate based on the capital improvement projects multiplied by gallons per what we call a service unit, which in this case is a single family residential unit. So the gallons per service unit or gallons per connection. So those are the two numbers that we use in the calculation. So we'll go to the next slide. I'll go through it a little bit more detail. So this is your system development fee analysis, water in blue, wastewater in green. So just going through the water portion of this, when we look at the CIP over 20 years, we're only considering growth-related projects. Any rehab projects, any other types of projects that are not related to growth, they get pulled out of the CIP. So you have a growth-related CIP over 20 years of just under $304 million. When we go through the analysis, that gives you a cost per gallon for that of $54.66. I talked about that credit. That credit has to come from other sources, rates, loans, grants, but that credit is $13.67. So your system development fee cost per gallon on the water side is $41. So then we get into how many gallons per connection per day do we assume and use? What the statute tells you is that you use what the town's planning numbers are. In the local water supply plan, the town uses 250 gallons per connection on an average day. Based on the water master plan, as well as historic information, we know that the average day to max day peaking factor is 2.0. And we are looking at maximum day service when we look at our water capital improvement projects. So the 250 times 2 is 500. So if you take that $41, multiply it by 500, your water SDF is $20,500 per service unit. Similarly, on the wastewater side, the growth CIP for that over 20 years is just under $154 million. Same analysis, 69.41 cost per gallon. There's a 17.35 credit. So that works out to 52.05 SDF cost per gallon. For the planning level numbers, the town utilizes the 2T rules from NCDEQ that utilizes 360 gallons per single family residential lot per day. So 52.05 times the 360 comes up with 18,738. So when we add those together at the bottom, your total allowable maximum system development fee is $39,238. So if you go to the last slide. So we talk about service units. When we look at service units, one residential unit is equal to one service unit. And that's a in the town of Pittsboro, that's a 1/2 inch or a 3/4 inch meter. So that's a 1.0 service unit equivalent. As the meter size gets up, it's a ratio of the capacity of that meter size to the single family residential meter size. So that service unit equivalent is the ratios for those different meter capacities. So if you look at the table, the cost goes exponentially up. So single family residential, 39,238. But if you had someone come in with a 10-inch meter, your allowable fee is $7,193,000. So very high level, but I will answer any questions you all have. Yes, sir.
Brian, what page will I find this chart?
That chart right there, I believe, is on, it's at the very back, not in the appendices, but it's at the back of the report. I think the last page.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Colors changed.
I just want to kind of highlight, this is not a question, but if we adopt this, and this is based on actual cost of infrastructure projects. So if we adopt this at this level, it would cost $39,000 for one single family home to connect to utilities in Pittsboro. So that's why grants are important, and other assistance, because these would be significantly higher than anywhere else in the state, I believe. I mean,
There is not a database that puts all that stuff together. What we have personal knowledge of, it's high. It is. I've not seen anything quite this high. However, I would say Pittsboro is at a very unique position. Exponential growth, very exponential growth over the next 20 years, starting with a pretty small customer base.
Yep.
So that it's kind of a perfect storm. You get that unique position. But that is what's driving the cost up. Coupled with the fact that a lot of these costs are bringing water in and taking wastewater away. It's not your internal system. It's that we got to go get it from somewhere, and it's expensive, as you know.
And just I think the analysis that we got last meeting was, we can't do this by raising rates because we have so few customers, as you said. So I think we'd have to raise rates 3,300% or something that's unattainable. This is how new development pays for infrastructure, but at some point, costs like this would also be a hindrance to development significantly because of it's inequitable with other communities around us. But we have projects that cost this much, so.
Further questions for Brian?
Yeah, I have a question. I know this is going to come up down the road. What about if we have local, we'll say stakeholders or landowners that have vacant lots and have their children that want to build a house on this vacant lot that's been in the city limits for years, the taxes been paid on it for years? Are they going to be still paying this same $39,000 for a single home?
That is the way that this is set up. Now, what the town decides to do with that, the town decides to do with that. The system development fee is a fee set across all development for all connections to the system. There's subsidies, there's other things that you all can do. But yes, that is the way that the system development fee is intended to be.
I'm just going, that's pretty crazy for somebody that wanted to build one house on their property for a child. They've been paying taxes for years. But that was something we could have to work out later on.
So how will this is outside of the scope of your mandate and what we hired you to do, but I'd ask you to speculate if you would, or just help us think through maybe with some questions. How would this impact on the higher end, a 10-inch meter? What sort of facility needs a 10-inch meter? And how will this impact a $7 million connection fee, basically?
You don't see a lot of 10-inch meters. You're talking about a major industrial development. Let's say we've talked about a couple of them, a Wolfspeed, a VinFast. They're investing billions of dollars. It's nothing for them,
Okay.
but you don't see many of them.
Mhm.
I would venture to say you probably don't see many 6 or above inch meters. You do sometimes, but 10-inch meters, I don't even honestly know if you've got one in the town. You may have, but I don't think you do. So for the cost of that type of development, it's not a big cost for them. I'm speculating. Don't know that for sure.
So a 10-inch might be associated with a facility as large as a VinFast or Wolfspeed, what I heard you say.
That's correct.
All right, so let's go back down and just to get a feel for this. I mean, what type of facility would need a 3-inch connection?
That could be a smaller manufacturing facility, could be a school, could be a significant commercial development, something like that. Just depends.
Not a restaurant, but
No, not a restaurant.
several restaurants.
Correct. And the one thing I will point out about this, because those numbers are staggering, obviously. These are the maximum fees. So if you don't want to set a $7 million fee for a 10-inch meter, you don't have to. And it doesn't have to be proportionate. So if you say, I want to do 75% of that, you don't have to do 75% of all of them. You can do half of some of it. This is just the maximum that you're allowed to set. So your fee schedule will dictate that, whatever the board wants to do.
Well, point taken. However, we're making the capital investments in this infrastructure, and we've got to find a way to pay for it.
That's right.
So just some examples too from the projects that you mentioned. So it's a, I don't know, 60-page report or something around there, with, you know, based on projects that we expect are coming and the cost associated with those. One example is the Corbett Landing project, which I guess that's his current name, or that was his old name, but the cost of that project just for the water line going out there is going to be about $37,200 per home. And Flynn Farm, measured out on 64 is about $52,210 per home. So the fee that we're talking about in this case of, you know, $20,000 per home does not cover those projects. Certainly more would use that line and things like that, but it does also highlight the value of the density of development in the correct areas that we can extend utilities out to somewhere where they'll be used by many and the cost will be shared by many, because it's easier, it's closer. So is that correct?
Yes, generally correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It makes sense what you're saying.
And then can you talk about or maybe Kent, I don't know, but the timeline of this? So we have this presentation this evening on the system development fees. Currently our system development fees are significantly lower than this.
Right.
We obviously intend to increase our system development fees and change to charging by meter size instead of charging by gallons on the sewer side. How soon are we allowed to do that, I guess?
So by statute, and I think what we're talking about tonight is, you know, getting approval to post it. So we post it on your website for 45 days. There's a public comment period over 45 days. So you have to post it out there and you have to give the public the opportunity to review it and make comments on it, and you have to have a mechanism to receive those comments. At the end of the 45-day period, you have to have a public hearing on that. And then after that public hearing, you can implement it whenever you want to. There is no, just as long as you follow those two requirements, you can do it whenever you would like.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, one other question, kind of laid back what I just asked, and this may be up to Pam. How about accessory dwellings? Would they be paying accessory dwellings? Would they be paying the same SDF?
If they had technically speaking, if they had a separate meter, it's based on if you're setting a meter, you're charging the fee. If it's a tap off the existing meter, no, it's just a new meter.
New meter.
So I hope this isn't too in the weeds, but I think it's an important concept. It talks about the force main to Sanford being 750,000 gallons in this report, but it's a 2 million gallon line. Can you talk about that?
I can. So the way we looked at that force main is we looked at just the portion that the town is paying. There's agreements in place with the developer to pay a portion of that. So we pulled their portion of the fee out, or the cost sharing portion of that out of the cost. And we also pulled the portion of their capacity out of the capacity calculations. And so we looked at it at just the town's portion, which I believe based on the bids is somewhere in the $20 million range.
20
We used
and a half.
yeah, 20 and change. And we used 750,000 gallons for the capacity, as opposed to the whole thing, knowing that that money was coming from somewhere else.
So it's based on the contribution by Chatham Park to that project of $35 million.
Correct. It's not included in this fee.
Correct.
That is something completely separate. We pulled that out.
Okay. I have no more leading questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? So the vote we need to take tonight is to approve the posting of information on the website and schedule the public hearing for March 13th.
Yeah, I'm fine with proceeding to that motion. I do want to circle back to a prior conversation we had when we first met about this SDF report. I guess at that stage it was in preliminary draft. Commissioner Shipp, I appreciate it. You brought up the question of equity, and Jay, you brought that up. Excuse me, Commissioner Farrell, you brought that up again. That folks of modest means or been in town for lifetimes, multiple lifetimes, paying taxes for a long time. It might be pretty hard for them or for affordable housing units to carry the burden of these fees. And so that's a policy question, it's a policy matter. But at some point, we need to discuss that. We need to figure out how we go about addressing the problem, because I think I hear us saying that we want to address that problem.
Correct.
And perhaps that's something that we want to ask staff to look at specifically and bring us back options.
I think so. In particular, Mr. Misc, because I know there's pretty strict limitations on waiving fees, but I don't think it's possible. So I think it has to be an alternative. I think it has to be, payments from the general fund, or if that's even allowed.
Whatever
So
the language is.
right.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Mr. President. All right, look forward to coming back.
Would you make that as a motion?
I will. I'll move that we begin the public review process, 45 days. Post the document. And begin or go ahead and slate the public hearing. And also ask our attorney to present options to address questions and issues of equity.
Seconded.
Motion by Commissioner Bonitz, seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next matter on the agenda under old business is the Board of Adjustment recommendations. Janie and I have spoken recently, and we have now a full slate. I'm sure that Paul Misc would be pleased to hear that we have a full slate of 3 in-town members and 2 ETJ members for the Board of Adjustment and 2 alternates. Jamie, you have indicated to me that the ETJ nominations have been approved by the county, but I don't think that includes Jennifer Platt.
Right, so I put together a roster and I also got some applications too. So that was nice. But yes, it's a full board with 2 alternates, and I did send the names over to the county, but there was some miscommunication. So most likely the ETJ members, I'll have to get them their names back, and I have to do it for planning board anyways. So they should be reviewing those on February 20th.
Yes, there were 2 applications, one for Jennifer Platt, who is in ETJ, and one for Gary Simpson, who is in town, and then Martinez submitted her application today, and she is a downtown business owner and is interested in getting involved in local government. So she is an in-town person as well and can serve as an alternate. So so with that roster, the in-town being Walter Harris, Sarah Carr, and Gary Simpson, the ETJ being Greg Lennon, Shannon Cummer, and the alternates being Yara Martinez and Jennifer Platt. That is your roster, and Janie, you've got the indications of how to equitably have them sharing alternates for 1-2 years. Is that right?
Yes. Right.
Okay.
Can I hear the names again?
Yes, well, what we have already passed some from the other meeting, but for tonight, we're passing Gary Simpson to serve as an in-town representative for the Board of Adjustment, and Yara Martinez as an alternate in town. The other person we've not yet voted on is Jennifer Platt. She is in the ETJ, and she would be willing to serve as the ETJ alternate. We've already approved Red Lane and Shannon Plummer for the ETJ as well. So would the board be willing to, those new 3 names, Gary, Yara, and Jennifer?
How do I spell Yara Martinez?
YERA.
So I'll make a motion that we add to our Board of Adjustments Gary Simpson and Yara Martinez as the Gary Simpson as an in-town representative, Yara Martinez as an alternate in town, and that we add Dr. Jennifer Platt as an alternate ETJ representative.
Correct.
So
You've heard the motion.
I'll second. I just have one point of discussion. I think overall we need to solidify our process around this a little bit when we receive applications today, like that we haven't seen, for example. I don't have an issue with these people specifically, I don't think, but I think we just need to focus a little more on the process for receiving applications, contacting them, making sure they're acceptable, willing to serve. Have you been able to contact all the members that have been appointed?
I've been able to contact them, but I haven't heard back,
Okay. So
except for from one, and she didn't wish to participate.
right. So we potentially have people who aren't willing to serve on the board because we haven't heard back. So I think it's a good step we're taking tonight, but I think we got to be more something going forward.
I agree. The process has been unfortunately I'll say hasty, and I embrace the blame for that. I mean, I think that we've been caught on our heels with this, but it's not very often that we have a board of adjustments meeting or need for them to do the work. So I think we can give ourselves a little bit of leeway on that. I do have a question about process. So Janie, Ms. Phelps, it's the next step is that the county commission will review these names in March.
Right.
You can appoint whoever you want to. EPJs, we recommend for the county today.
Okay.
And they have some of the names, but apparently they didn't.
They didn't get the Jennifer Platten.
They didn't get that, but they had a retreat and everything, so it was sort of rushed. So it was just really quick. They actually appointed them to the planning board. So I said, no, they need to be the board of adjustment. So I need to send those names anyways. And also the planning board names are on here anyways.
And so again, we'll get that sorted out in March.
No, February.
Oh, February.
Mhm.
And so as soon as that we could actually hold the board of adjustment meeting.
So I would like to put them at least through some training to get them familiar with the QJ, the quasi judicial process, so that they understand, since they all are pretty much new members, it seems like. So that would be helpful, just to help them realize and just give them some very basic knowledge about it. But I would like to do that prior to us scheduling the hearing for the appeal that we have.
And can we estimate when that would be?
We could do some training in March, and then potentially, I think the meetings are I think they're scheduled for Thursdays once a month, I believe. So it would probably be April, I would assume.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Well, I think there's definitely an outstanding motion on the floor, which was by Commissioner Bonitz and seconded by Commissioner Shipp. And given the discussion, therefore, all of those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Unanimous. Under new business, the next matter is a waiver request for Turkey Creek Assemblage Conditional Zoning. Amy is back with us.
Thank you all again. So I'll start off by saying that the applicant Jeremy Medlin and Laura Holloman are both here to state their case, in addition to what they've provided me, which I shared with you all in the memo. And so you all received the information, and what staff has shared with them as well is that we don't foresee this as being a material, what is it called? A materially different application, which is what they're claiming this is. So there's 4 different standards that may be met, and they can choose from one of those four in order to have the waiver granted. And they've chosen number 3, which is the materially different one. And that's in, let's see, it's in chapter 10 of our UDO. So the specific statement says that the new application proposed to be submitted is materially different from the prior application. The main differences that are in there is that the first application proposed 54 single-family attached homes, and let's see, 79 front-loaded townhomes, 157 single-family detached, 20,000 square foot of commercial, and 180,000 square foot of industrial. And the new request that they have is 103 rear-loaded townhomes, 54 single-family attached townhomes, no front-loaded townhomes, 157 single-family detached homes, 42,000 square foot of commercial, and 225,200 square foot of industrial. So essentially, they're adding more than what they had originally proposed. And also the site layout is generally the same as what they originally proposed as well. So those are reasons that staff does not see that this is a material difference. In some other jurisdictions, they don't even allow applicants to apply for the same zoning within a year if it was denied. Just to give you some other context of what's done elsewhere. But I'll let Laura and Jeremy also speak to you if you all wish.
Laura, Jeremy, do you wish to speak?
Yes, please.
Hey, good evening, Madam Mayor and Madam Mayor Pro-Tem and members of the Board of Commissioners. It's good to see you all again. As you may recall, myself, Laura Holloman with McAdams, and my client, Jeremy Medlin with Greenhawk, were here back in June, where we had a very good overall, I think, meeting and presentation with you all. We've got some great constructive feedback. I think overall, there are a lot of positive things that you all reacted to as a part of the conditional rezoning, but you did have constructive feedback. We heard, can you perhaps make some increases to the overall residential units? And we've done that. We also heard concerns of, can we increase and think about being more mindful of the non-residential square footage? So we've done that. We've upped the commercial square footage as well as the industrial square footage. And we did that while still being good neighbors to the surrounding property owners, because you may recall we did have some folks come and speak with concerns about being surrounded by industrial. And we talked about, as well as when we met with the Potterstone Village residents, they talked about wanting to maintain a transition. So we kept those single family attached dwellings, and we didn't change that portion of the plan. We did that in good faith with based on our prior feedback and discussions with them. And that's also why the single family detached did not change, because we feel like that is in good keeping and character with the surrounding area. So the things that we changed is based on feedback from you all with trying to make this a good plan. At that June meeting, we heard that what the town needed was to step back and think about an overall vision and plan for the community. And you see with Ms. Phelps' brief overview, we've been talking with her throughout the process. We know that you all have been hard at work with a new comprehensive plan, and you asked us to come back to you all in December when the comprehensive plan was well underway. And now it's January and we're coming back doing exactly what you've asked, but with a rebuffed better, what we think is a better rezoning request. By letting this move forward, this does not guarantee an approval. We understand that. We simply want to be able to move forward with this so that Greenhawk, who is a current owner of the property, so we can move forward and get in line and move on with our plans, because we're anxious to do that. We're anxious to be a part of the community. We think we've put forth a good plan, and we're hopeful that you all are understanding in that matter, and we can move forward with the overall review process for this rezoning moving forward. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Other questions?
Yeah, I didn't see the conditions in here. So other than the change of the mix of properties, are you proposing changes to the conditions as well?
The conditions, we know that that probably overall those will not change, other than the fact of, the accompanying plan will change in terms of the rear townhome products that we're incorporating. We're getting rid of the front-loaded townhomes. We feel like that's a substantial change and will contribute to the character of the overall neighborhood. We heard feedback from you all about that, and then the committing to a larger square footage of the commercial and industrial. But overall, those are the main changes to the conditions.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Your response does, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions?
And I guess Janie probably, if this, so we're talking about, submitting in, I guess, probably February versus June. With either of those, when would we see it back at the planning board and the town board? Or, what's the timeline from either this date or the original June date?
So if they wouldn't be able to apply in February because of the timeline that we have, so it would be a March submittal. Or it would be a March planning board. And then potentially to you all in April. Whereas if they waited until after the June date, it could go to the planning board in July. And then you all would potentially see it in August.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to sit down if there's no further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's the pleasure?
I'd say for me, this is really where the delay in the land use plan comes into play also, that we expected that to be done. Some of our discussion about the original denial was about that being done and some resolution on sewer. We still don't have either of those, but I think that they are coming soon. So I think that would fit probably the original. I think they're both delayed maybe from what we expected, but they would probably fit the original timeline more closely. I think there's still a little bit of work to do on this. And I don't want to give the impression, I guess, that there's not.
Is it beneficial to the town, to our planning department to waiver this, or what's the benefits to the town or the applicant?
I mean, as far as the town goes, ultimately, when it comes down to it, with that many homes, they're going to tie into public utilities. And we also don't have the ability to do that right now. So what they also want to do is they want to get the zoning in place because that is a big part of it. So it would give them that leg up. They can work more on their development and kind of fine tune it and just stay abreast of the sewer situation. And then submit what they need to at that time once that kind of all gets figured out. So really, it's just the rezoning right now.
But it would potentially be a precedent.
Right.
Does this board, that's our job as policy setter. Do we want to set a precedent that if we waived this element of our UDO that requires basically a cooling off period? So that's the town's interest, isn't it?
Right, yes, so, we do have it in the UDO, that adopted document that is living and can't be changed if you want it to be changed, but at this time, there's those 4 findings that at least one of them needs to be demonstrated. I can share them on the screen if you want to see them.
But in your opinion, I think you've already shared that it hasn't been met.
Right, I can just summarize the other one. So the first one is that there's a substantial change in circumstances that may reasonably affect the decision-making body's application. New or additional information is available that was not available at the time of review for the prior application. The new application proposed is materially different from the prior application, or the final decision on the prior application was based on a material mistake of fact.
Mayor, I think this has been couched in terms of waiver. It really is whether or not this falls under the category that's in UDO that says that your waiting period is not applied, and the event that it's one of those, one more of those. So, if there is a new plan, then it's not a waiver here, then anybody will go forward. Staff doesn't depend on that it's not any or any of the other. And that's really the issue, whether it is or isn't. Same now. There's an exception, there are 4 exceptions. The bottom, we go at the bottom of this.
But the spirit has changed in that they've adopted the things that we've asked for. Right, the spirit of the, not the spirit, but what was the wording again? Can you help me with that? The one that you said that you don't think it meets the criteria for.
Materially different
Material.
from the prior application. So, and I looked through our UDO and I also looked through the American Planners dictionary to see if it defined materially different. I didn't find anything. So it's one of those things that's also based off of interpretation. So if you all deem that this is something that's materially different and that's the precedent that's to be set, then that's what we're going to go with. So.
But it's materially different in that they've addressed our concerns. Or am I misunderstanding?
I don't think they have. The concerns going back were affordable housing from Commissioner Baldwin and myself. Also Commissioner Bonitz, and making it more dense and including affordable housing. Adding conditions to not have gas stations, car washes, things like that. So I mean, with no changes to the conditions and a slight rearrangement and a shift in proportions, I don't see how it's significantly different. It also may not be. It also may be acceptable at the time, but I don't think it meets the conditions for early review. And I don't think that is a precedent or a thing. I agree with Mr. Misc that we have that process in our UDO for a reason. I just don't think that they meet the conditions for it.
Yes, sir.
Here, not come up, Jeremy Evans, Freedom Corporation.
I've heard a lot of dialogue this evening about significant changes to the plan or trying to quantify it. Only thing I can tell you is it's 33%. The commercial retail space is 33% greater than what it was before. That is a significant investment. Whether or not that's reflected on the plan or not, it is significant. An 8% increase in the residential, not so significant, but it is in reaction to what the commissioners, the feedback that they gave me last time we met with you folks. You wanted more density, you wanted more affordable options, opportunities. This would be the start of the process, the zoning process. It will probably take the better part of a year. I know that we all have schedules and whatnot, but it more than likely will drag on a year. And then by the time you're talking about the CDs and all the construction drawings, that's another year. And so before you know it, it's 2.5 years. I'm merely trying to get your permission to do something with the property that we own. We've invested in your community. We plan on being here for the long term, for the long haul. We're not kicking tires here. We're not speculating. We own the property. And we just merely want to be here. We want to be part of your community. And we want to complement what you've already done here in Pittsboro and what you're trying to cultivate. And we just want the permission to go forward with that, to start the zoning process again and make what we've got and what we've given you better. Thank you.
Well, thank you for those sentiments. I'll take the opportunity to ask if have you found our affordable housing incentive package something that you can work with?
We will figure out a way to work with you on that. But again, I figured that would be done as we're going through the zoning process, and it would be tied to the zoning approval, which it will evolve over the next year. First off, I need to get comfortable that you're actually going to somewhat support what I'm trying to cultivate right now, with the units that are provided in the layout.
Well, and it's tough with staff making the judgment that this isn't appreciably different. Without much to read on the affordability piece. I hope you can appreciate that we're kind of in a rock and a hard place, because we know the demand is there. We know we've got to get more residential units. I feel especially strongly that we've got to get more affordable. And by that, I mean a huge range of affordable, not a great diversity of affordable.
Right.
Not just market rate, but subsidized and of all different shapes and sizes. The jobs are coming. We've got to have places to house these folks if we're to have a community with any cohesivity. But I very much appreciate staff's diligence on this, and I am also concerned about setting a precedent. Do others want to share thoughts? Further question?
Yeah, obviously I'm sensitive to that. We know other development in town is proceeding, and development in some areas of town is not proceeding. So I'm sensitive to that. Also, we do have a need for commercial and residential development. We are really trying to figure out how to have utilities to enable that development for everyone. We don't have that figured out yet. I think in this particular area, the land use plan is critical, particularly with the industrial land near it, currently zoned industrial land, and some of this is also, and I think if you're, it's a little bit of a different timeline. So it sounds like we're talking about where the staff is saying, you guys could submit in March. It sounds like you guys might not be ready to do that yet. If you're saying that zoning is going to take over a year to happen. So I think it's something that we could work on over the next few months and have a much more solid application ready to put in June and proceed more quickly, rather than putting it in and going through some rounds and some delays of working it, through a more formal process, maybe.
Well said.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to deny the waiver.
There, a second.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Commissioner Bonitz. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion to deny issue is unanimous. Thank you, Janie. You are back with us on planning board appointments.
Yes, hello for the last time tonight. So again, going off of one of our boards, our advisory board, the planning board, we realized that a couple of our members' terms had expired, and also that in looking at the roster, the two that expired was last December, and then the rest of our members all expire this December. So the memo is, I try to make it as simple as possible with explaining what we're requesting for how to appoint them, so that we don't have this happen again where we have kind of a half dozen in one hand, six in the other situation happen with our members. So as the memo states, and I've contacted all of these members too, to verify if they would be willing to serve some more and at what kind of capacity they would like to continue serving, because our UDO states that planning board members are allowed to serve consecutive terms. There's no limit to the amount of terms that they can serve. So we're recommending Eric Braun to be appointed for another 3 years, Carl Schaefer for 2 years, Alfreda Alston, she has no change. She's the only one that her term expires this December. Those are all town regular members. And then William Baker for 3 years, he's an ETJ member. So these are some more names that I have to get to the county. And then we also have Ray Carney and Charity Mize. So those are alternate members, but because of the amount of members that we have on our board, they've been attending every meeting. So we would like to request to have them appointed to regular members, since they've been at every meeting anyways. So we're suggesting Ray Carney for 2 years. He's a town member. And then Charity Mize, her term also expires this year. So hers has no change, and she's an ETJ member. And then that leaves 2 vacant alternate positions. So if you have 2 other recommendations for a town and an ETJ, then we'll welcome those as well. But this gives us the full board of 6, as our UDO states.
I just think, again, we need to get better at our boards. And I'm willing to put resources behind that if we need it. I know there's been a lot of transition, but we had an ABC board expire for multiple years. I think we had, expirations here. We need help tracking that and keeping up on it. Again, no issue, with the current proposals here, but we just gotta stay up on this. And then I think put the call out for applications for alternate members for town and ETJ. And I'd like to see, I think we used to get applications even for renewal members, showing that they're interested in renewing. So just like to see that, but no issue with these. I'll make a motion to do all these things.
Approve as is.
Sorry, Carrie. I'll read it. All right. Make a motion to reappoint Eric Braun, town regular member for a 3-year term, Carl Schaefer, town regular member for a 2-year term, and William Baker, ETJ, regular member for a 2-year term. Appoint Ray Carney from an alternate member to a town regular member for a 2-year term, and Charity Mize from an alternate to an ETJ regular member for the remainder of the existing term, with the ETJs being recommendations to the county board.
You've heard the motion.
Second.
Motion is by Commissioner Shipp, seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously.
And I'll make a quick correction for Carrie for her minutes because I messed up in the memo, but William Baker should be 3 years for the ETJ, not 2, as I stated in the recommendation. Do you want
That's
them to amend
acceptable.
it?
Yes,
Friendly amendment.
yes.
The next matter is the PFAS litigation, and will be turning to our town attorney, Paul Messer, for that.
Back in July, you all wanted to share evidence about to investigate the worst.
Here, can you get in close, please?
There you go.
I think that I can speak that far. In July, you all appointed Sher Edling, which is a California law firm that specializes in environmental actions like this to investigate the water in the river and the potential claims that the town might have with respect to PFAS contamination. You also asked them to look into the 1,4-dioxane, and they're still pursuing an investigation of that matter. But with respect to the PFAS, they're recommending that the town institute legal action against potential defendants who have contaminated the water in the river, and to recover the damages that the town has sustained and is likely to sustain in the future in terms of treating this particular type of contaminant. I recommend that you authorize them to proceed to file the lawsuit and go from there.
Heard the recommendation of the planning. Are there questions?
No, I'd like to make the motion
Please.
to proceed with the litigation as our attorney has outlined.
Motion by Commissioner Bonitz. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Vose. Is there further discussion?
Mr. Messick, can you talk about the expected timeline and how
Imminent.
slow it will be?
Imminent.
Well, the filing and any action. I guess.
Well, the filing would be in very short order.
Yeah.
And there's no real guarantee in terms of litigation as far as how long things take. There are certain prescribed opportunities for the defendants to get, one, they have to be notified. They have to get a copy of the complaint. They have to have an opportunity to respond to the complaint. It is anticipated that if this is filed in state court here in North Carolina, that some of the defendants would likely remove the case to federal court, which would be in Greensboro in the Middle District of North Carolina. Because the firefighting phone is involved in this litigation because of the evidence that Sher Edling has found with respect to the water. It's possible that the case could be transferred to a federal court in South Carolina, which is handling the multi-district litigation with firefighting phone. So all those things would take a couple of months at least until it got there. But this could take a considerable period of time to get resolved.
Thank you.
So it's not going to be a quick and easy thing at all. But if you don't start, you never finish.
Correct. And we have a press release ready with more.
When the
details.
case is filed, we'll do that.
Okay, great.
All right, any further questions? You've heard the motion to proceed by Commissioner Bonnet, seconded by Commissioner Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. At this point on our agenda, we are scheduling a closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318.11A3. There are motions for the closed session.
Madam Mayor, if I may just very briefly interrupt. Before we leave this open session, while we still have the audience with us, I did want to thank Commissioner Vose for an email in which he addressed a concern about the skate park idea. And just kind of wanted to elevate your question, not to put this to a vote, but to see if we might have a little bit of a strong hold here to sense the pulse of the board very quickly without much discussion. We may remember that this is a piece of land that we own. Memorandum of understanding did involve use of this as a skate park. And the public has raised what I think I've heard $85,000.
Are you asking to add this to the agenda this evening? Or
No, I'm not adding it. I'm raising this as a concern.
okay,
So usually we do commissioner concerns at the ends of the meetings, and so.
sure.
Again, I don't want to belabor it. I just wanted to elevate that another commissioner has raised this by email. Do we want to formally put this on the next agenda?
I think we should put it on the next agenda and look at the background and the history of that skate park. So that I think it'll be better discussed on that, if that's okay. But you're welcome.
Thank you.
If you would send me that email, I did not get it.
Absolutely.
All right, we were in the first motion for the session.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Bonitz, seconded by Commissioner Rose.
Second.
Favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
As opposed,
That's myself.
motion carries unanimously. We shall go into
We don't speak.
closed session. So, do we need to have a vote on amending the agenda? We're amending the agenda to provide for an agreement with and hiring of Larry Faison as our interim manager pursuant to a contract mostly drawn by Paul Misc. Those in favor, no, we need somebody to make the motion.
So moved.
And
Second.
second, motion by Mayor Pro-Tem Baldwin, seconded by Vose. Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Now that we've added it to the agenda, is there anybody that would like to make a motion that we have Larry Faison hired as the interim town manager starting February 1? Is that what you said? I think he started today, didn't he?
You already got one.
This was volunteer time.
Okay. Starting February 1 for an unknown and indefinite period of time. Till we hire a new one or he runs.
Contract the mayor and the current town attorney is negotiating.
Okay, thank you. Somebody's willing to make that motion?
I so move.
Second.
Those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries unanimous. Thank you. Now, are we going to adjourn? Did anybody have anything else they'd like to do, including propose how we get world peace or?
I actually have a theory about that.
Or feed all the hungry children or anything?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
For my theory?
Yes.
Second.
Motion by Shipp, seconded by.
Actually.
Please indicate by saying aye and stand up.
Aye.